darkness falls across the land. The rhythmic hours close at hand. Upsets crawl in search of blood to terrorize y'all's group stage hood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside elimination's shell. The foulest stench is in the air, the funk of 15 World Cup years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your teammates start to shiver, for no mere mortal can resist the evil of the Gorilla. Welcome back to Halloween at the US World Cup 2025. And a true fright, the earliest match in World Cup history, the closest match by seeding in the contender groups, Vietnam versus Malaysia, a match that may very well decide the fate of both of these teams, whether they move on into the next round of the World Cup or whether they are eliminated here in the group stage. I'm Dio, and joining me for the honor of casting the very first match of the US World Cup 2025 is iFlame. Welcome back.
Thank you. I didn't know you were such a poet like that, but I'm so excited to be back finally for OWC 2025 group stage. We've got a brand new format, brand new teams qualifying, and a ton of good matchups here. So before we start talking about the teams, let's go over the format quickly because I'm sure a lot of people are not familiar. So out of qualifiers, the top 8 seeds were placed into the Legends group, and they get a bye straight to the winners bracket round of 16. Seeds 9 to 24, they are called the Challengers, and the Challengers are split up into 4 groups. The top 2 teams from each group will move on to the winners bracket round of 16 to play against the Legends teams. The bottom 2 teams in each group will, of course, drop to the lower losers bracket in round of 16, where they will face off against the contenders. That's going to be seeds 25 to 40. Top 2 teams again in each group are going to be seeded directly into that round of 16 losers bracket, and the bottom 2 teams in each group are eliminated. Of course, this matchup, Vietnam and Malaysia, we are going to be playing in the contenders group, and so this is going to be an important one. But Dio, talk to me about this Vietnam roster.
This is a roster that has had a lot of eyes on it, with one player in particular. It's Def, who plays every single map for this team just about, and has done a damn good job of it. Their best performer in qualifiers by a wide margin, the best tournament player in the country by a pretty wide margin, and has a solid supporting cast as well. Players like Casio, players like another guy, players like Shimi, players like Bao and something else, players... A lot of these players, honestly, are very, very solid as support for Def, who plays every single map on this team. And it's not just Def putting up the solid scores. I mean, you look at things like their DT1 run, Def's getting 575k. Another guy is getting the full combo on that map in qualifiers. So this is a team that does have other players with the potential to pop off. You're definitely looking at Def as a solid core roster kind of backbone for this team, but there are going to be a lot of other players here who can put up some very good scores as well.
Yeah. Then on the other side, we've got Malaysia. They're going to be running a core of Mind and RAM packs on most maps, or Mint, and RAM packs on most maps. These are actually 2 individual placements apart in the qualifiers, but otherwise they've got a lot of very strong fill players. Malaysia was the kind of team in qualifiers that had very strong scores on certain maps and very poor scores on other ones, and that tends to mean pretty good things, at least for the group stage. Don't expect them to give up a lot of early break points. And overall, I think they tend to be a more well-rounded, at least balanced team in terms of depth compared to Vietnam. And keep in mind, this is a much easier pool than qualifiers. That qualifiers Nomad 1 was 7.4 stars. This week, the Nomad won 6.7 stars. So on a pool like the qualifiers, really favors a player like Def, who can put up those really strong scores on some of those harder maps and really give Vietnam a boost in the qualifiers. In the group stage, it's much more about team depth, team consistency, as well as settling those nerves for OWC, whereas Def will be a very strong player for Vietnam, of course, but in the group stage, it's going to be a lot more difficult to kind of make that individual difference. And so we're going to need to see some team consistency out of both of these teams. We are waiting for the ban for Vietnam to come through first. They're going to be banning out the DT2, that 255 BPM speed map. Interestingly, both of these teams were pretty even on the speed maps in qualifiers, but they don't feel like they want to take that this time around. Next
I
up,
think
Dan,
for the DT2 in particular as well, it's a lot more comparable to the DT1 from qualifiers, which was that kind of high BPM burst map, right? Malaysia's first run on that map, they had 3.9 million team score with 2 FCs from No Head and Rampax and an A rank choke of over 1.1 million score from Mint Breeze. Vietnam's best score on that map was 2.7 million team score. So they just do not want to play against Malaysia when they have the potential to beat them by 1.2 million score on something like this DT2, which is overall pretty comparable to what we had in the DT1 last week.
Yeah, I think for Malaysia, in terms of bans, their biggest pain points in the qualifiers were things like the Nomad 2 and the Hard Rock 1, I think, are going to be the biggest areas of attack. Vietnam looked really, really solid on the Hard Rocks, whereas Malaysia struggled a bit. And then those tapping maps, Malaysia should struggle a bit as well, at least with the lower BPM stream maps, but they are going to be banning out the No Mod 3, that CS5 AR7 incredibly awkward reading map, and don't want to play gimmick against Vietnam. And Vietnam with the first pick, curious if they do want to opt into one of those Hard Rocks. I think really either the Hard Rock 1 or the Hard Rock 2 could be good picks for them at some point in this match. I'm also looking at things like some of the more tech-focused maps, things like the No Mod 4, as well as potentially things like the Free Mod 1 later on.
Yeah, I think this is a match that's kind of characterized by Vietnam really liking things like the flow aim, like tech, like reading, being very, very strong on a lot of the more gimmicky stuff, whereas Malaysia is really just going to want to pick mechanics. You look across the qualifier scores for both of these teams, they're right next to each other in seeding, 32 versus 33. Malaysia has a slight edge on the Nomad aim. Vietnam has a solid edge on the Nomad 2 flow aim test from qualifiers. Malaysia a little bit better on Nomad 3 from qualifiers on that alt map. Vietnam much better on the tech map. Malaysia better on the aim hidden 1. Vietnam much better on the low AR hidden 2 in qualifiers, which is also going to be their first pick here. Coconut Love by I Love You Orchestra, mapped by Funny. This is the remaining low AR map now that Malaysia have banned out that Nomad 3. And I think this is a pretty solid pick for this Vietnam team. They didn't have the best of runs on this in the qualifiers. You look at their team scores, it's 1.4 million, 1.2 million team score from them both times. But that's still better each time than both of Malaysia's team scores on the Hidden 2 in qualifiers, which were about 1 million team score flat each time. Malaysia really struggled on this map in qualifiers to get a decent score, and so this kind of a first pick from Vietnam, I think, makes a lot of sense. Even if it's not their best map, it's one of Malaysia's worst, and that's really all you need when you are picking maps in a tournament, right? It's not about getting the best score possible, it's just about beating your opponent, and that's certainly something that Vietnam should feel confident in doing on this Hidden 2.
Yeah, it's definitely a smart pick for Vietnam. Both of these teams have one player on each roster that's kind of just there for reading. So Electro Strike for Vietnam, as well as TV Maruko. Usually for Malaysia, I do expect to be the last player there, just in for the rating, so very possibly these might be their only mask. We're going to get a hot dog in instead for Malaysia, and of course the core roster for Vietnam of Def, Simi, and something else. We're going to be seeing these three on just about every map, and for Malaysia, this is kind of quite a few of the rating players, but slightly surprised not to see a Chibi Maruko in for this one. And as a reminder, each team only plays one match against every other team in their group. So in this group, we have Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Denmark. Because you only play one match against every other team, every single match is so incredibly important. The only way to guarantee getting out of groups is to go 3-0, 2-1. You have pretty good odds, but it's not a guarantee. And especially a matchup between these two teams that are so close in seeding. If you lose this one, you still have to play the higher seeded Taiwan team later on. And so this match could very well be the decider between second and third if all else goes to plan. But here we go, Dio, our first map of group stage. It's going to be Coconut Love.
At the start of the very first match of the OS World Cup 2025, the earliest start we have ever had to an OS World Cup, Friday 14 UTC. Quite literally unprecedented. A couple of early misses here from Harumi Ena and Shime. For anyone who is somewhat new to tournaments, explain that real quick as we're just getting into this map and everything seems pretty stable. Another miss there from Harumi Ena, but better accuracy for Malaysia to keep things on their side. Goal in tournaments, just beat your opponent on a set number of maps. In this case, the first team to 5 map wins the match. And we see a massive number of breaks from quite a few people. Shimi, Harumi, Emma, Shiyu, and Electro Strike all finding breaks there. Still 2 full combos on each side, but there goes a hot dog. Make that 1 for Malaysia. Def and something else are just popping off right now, holding on to the full combos where it matters. And Mabayu for Malaysia doing the same, but unable to find a counterpart on their team to stand strong with them against Vietnam. And now Def and something else, now just Def, holding on to this full combo, should still be able to keep this on the side of Vietnam, but it's 1-to-1 matching full combos right now, and everyone else is just kind of having a rough time. But there goes Def, now Mabayu unmatched on the full combo for Malaysia, and whereas before there was no counterpart in his team, now there's no counterpart in the lobby. Mabayu standing alone for Malaysia, looking to force a breakpoint on Vietnam's first pick and take an unlikely win for the team on this Hidden 2.
Yeah, there are some very tough patterns at the end of this map, though. Mabayu does need to hold on to the combo. 120,000 points is nice, but it is not a secure lead, especially with some recoveries on Simi and something else. But that miss from Electro Strike not going to be helping things out, and very quickly, Vietnam are running out of time. We are barreling towards that breakpoint as the score lead continues to grow. Another miss from Def. There goes Mabayu. But I think it's too little too late, Theo, as the rest of Malaysia have solid combos as well. Now it's only Simi make that no combos left on Vietnam, and the first pick of OWC 25 group stage will be a breakpoint in favor of Malaysia.
Yeah, Mabayu just finding the pop-off play that mattered there. Very, very solid run for them. 2 missed, 97.5 A rank. And slightly better accuracy for Def, but just could not match the combo there. Everything else, I mean, pretty even across the board, but even then, I think the supporting scores for Malaysia were a little better than for Vietnam, so Def would not have just had to match, but also outperform by a couple 100,000 points. Mabayu's 720k there, so basically needed the FC to carry that, or needed the supporting scores to raise up a little bit around him, and that just did not happen this time around. Malaysia finding the break point, and talked about this a little bit before they, or as they picked the Hidden 2. You don't necessarily need to get the best scores on a map to win, you just need to beat your opponent. But if your opponent starts to perform a lot better, especially on a lower star rating pool, Malaysia is a team that's been around in the World Cups for a long time. They're always around top 32, top 24 area. This is a scary team that knows how to play these lower star rating group stage pools, and they're going to be able to put up some solid scores on this lower star rating. So Vietnam, unfortunately, maybe a little bit baited in by the worst performance in qualifiers from Malaysia, as now we get into what I think we should have expected here. A speed pick from Malaysia, the Nomad 2. Not a stream map, but a speed stamina map, 230 BPM. And one with one hell of a storyboard, I have to say. If you haven't seen it, hopefully we show it here. If we're not showing it here, go back and watch the map pool showcase once this match is over, because it's a great storyboard.
Yeah, the storyboard is so good. But this is a very dense tapping map. You don't need to worry about aiming a lot of these bursts too much, but we're going to see the dedicated speed rosters coming in for either side. And you mentioned Malaysia, pretty scary team. They did get eliminated 5-3 by Taiwan in the round of 32 last year. Now, in the same group, they have a chance to get their revenge, but they're going to have to get through Vietnam first as we wait for the lobby to fill out.
Now, we'll see if they're able to do that. Still, an early breakpoint is very good for Malaysia in doing so. And I think that's the one unfortunate bit of trouble that Vietnam has in this World Cup is they're a pretty much brand new team to the World Cup stage, right? They have not qualified into a main stage before. And so for this roster, every single player is new to the World Cups. Malaysia, they've been here before quite a lot. They're not going to have the same level of nerves. And definitely on the speed mechanics, you favor Malaysia just based off the qualifier results. Talked about the DT1 a little bit earlier when they went ahead and banned out that double time 2. Even on the DT2, they did have a bit of a better time as well. So both of those speed maps a little bit better for Malaysia than for Vietnam. But also, as we saw on the Hidden 2 just now, just because the qualifiers went one way doesn't mean the group stage can't go another way. We'll see if Vietnam is able to fire back with a breakpoint of their own here on the Nomad 2. Something else, another guy, Bao and Def versus Harumi Enna, Rampax, Nohead, and Mabayu.
Yeah, we play the maps for a reason. Vietnam last qualified for the group stage in OWC2, the second ever OWC. So it's been quite a while since then, and I think the players for Vietnam definitely could use a few maps to settle in, get used to those nerves. But as we get into this Nomad 2, the bursts very quickly start to pick up, and we're getting a pretty good idea of comfort level on both of these teams. It's a relatively short map, so these early misses do matter, but for now it's just going to be one miss on either side. Make that 2 for Vietnam, as they do have some early struggles with the accuracy as well. Something else and Bao down at 95. It's going to hurt them a fair bit. Accuracy is all looking incredibly solid now for Malaysia, but a big miss for Nohead is going to keep things even. Harumi Enna as well. Now it's going to be 2 FCs to 2. Vietnam keeping things close, but we still have a lot of map to go.
Still overall close, but there goes something else, and now it's 2 FCs to 1, and the supporting score is basically equal for both of these teams. Def on the solo carry run right now needs to pull it off. Rampax and Mabayu, just one of the two of them needs to match, and they are clear for Malaysia to take this. Another miss comes through for another guy as well. Harumi Enna and Nohead both still holding on to their combos. There goes Bao, and the supporting score is falling apart a little bit for Vietnam, finding these misses where Malaysia just is not. It's been 4 uncontested misses from Vietnam in a row. Def still holding strong with the full combo, but so are Rampax and Mabayu, and they're going to see the scores here. They're all going to know, hey, this is basically the only way we lose this is if all of us miss and Def FCs. So as long as that doesn't happen, we're in the clear. Just hold a little bit of combo here, guys, and we're all good to go. Harumi Enna, Nohead, Rampax, and Mabayu all on these massive combos. Another guy with a good support for Vietnam and Def on the FC. But, I mean, this is just getting way out of hand at this point, and at a 500,000 score lead for Malaysia, and that slider break from Def, unfortunate slow slider there. That is going to be the map with no contest from Vietnam, basically. This is a massive score lead for Malaysia. 2 full combos still intact. 1K on both of their supporting combos. iFlame, the qualifiers were accurate on this one. This is not particularly close between these two teams.
They certainly were. 3.2 million is an incredibly strong score coming through for Malaysia. And that's going to be the breakpoint consolidated as well. So Vietnam are really going to need to make the rest of their picks count, especially because this is the best of 9. You don't get that many chances to win back your breakpoint. There's only 4 picks maximum on either side. And that also means you really can't afford to give up any further breakpoints. So they're going to have to make their next pick very carefully. Now, there is no more low AR left in the pool. So we're not going to be seeing the reading once again. But does still feel like there's a lot of good options for Vietnam. Going off of qualifiers, I do still think the Hard Rocks would look good for them. But as we've seen on the Hidden 2, sometimes the qualifiers don't tell the whole story. And I do think there are some riskier picks, right? This precision map Malaysia does have a couple of solid precision players that could find them another breakpoint if you just get a couple unlucky misses on Vietnam. And for this group stage, the the point difference matters as well. So if two teams are tied in terms of wins in the group stage, it comes down to which team has the best map differential. So if Malaysia can get a few more quick points and win this match, by 2-3 points, I think it's going to put them in a really good spot for the rest of the group stage.
On the flip side, I think Vietnam is going to change gears a little bit here. And indeed they do. They're going for the free mod 2, not into something gimmicky, just into flow aim. We saw in the no mod 2 in qualifiers, they were very solid on that sort of stream flow aim. This is a very similar type of map here. Nightmare Invitation by Ebemayo, mapped by Selena. This is also, I believe, a custom map for the OS World Cup 2025 group stage this year, as well as an original song from the Mania World Cup 2025, Mania World Cup 7K 2025. This map is very, very straightforward in terms of what it tests. It's just a flow aim stream map, 195 BPM. There are a few sorts of trickier patterns, like some 6-note bursts, especially in the first difficult section, that if you're not expecting them, can throw you off. But this is the OS World Cup after all. I think the players will have practiced those patterns and be just fine on them. For free mod, this map CS 3.8 AR 9.6 should be relatively comfortable. No mod, hidden, or hard rock. Teams, of course, need at least one hidden only, and at least one player taking hard rock in some way. So either hard rock only or hidden hard rock is just fine for the hard rock players. As we get into the third map of the match, Vietnam hoping to put a point on the board here with this free mod 2 pick and not let Malaysia, as you said, iFlame, start to rack up those points quickly and potentially close this out cleanly. Looking to avoid the sweep and keep this match close. Casio, Def, another guy, and Bao looking to extend the lead. Harumi, Enna, No-Head, Rampax, and Mabayu.
Yeah, we do see oftentimes in the early stages, lots of teams like to overmod some of these free mods, but this is one of the trickier free mods, so not going to see any overmods here. We're going to see Casio as well as Mabayu on the hidden, another guy and Rampax running the hard rock. And this is one of those free mod maps where both the mods are quite a bit tougher compared to the no mod. So I think both teams are going to be relying a lot more on their no mod players to put up some really strong scores. I really like Vietnam letting Def play the no mod. You say, just have the easiest time possible. We want you to be able to put up, an FC or really as good of a score as possible, and just put on an absolute carry performance. So I do like when teams do that. And here we go into these aim control streams. There are a lot of sharp angle changes, lots of spacing changes as well. And it does have some tricky aim control patterns as well. But both games looking good so far. There's been a couple early misses on the side of Malaysia from No-Head and Mabayu, but they're not going to be too far behind. 50,000 point difference is not much all in a map like this. That's a bigger miss from Harumi Enna, and Mabayu finds a second miss on that hidden. Meanwhile, Vietnam looking incredibly good on their second pick, still going for FC strong. Finally, we do see one miss from Vietnam out of Casio, but if they see 3 more FCs, they know they are heavily in the lead. We get into a bit of a trickier section now, some tougher streams, and a tricky slider aim kind of pattern approaching as well. We'll see if Vietnam drops any combos there, but now it's one FC against the Rampax, trying to fend off this Vietnam attack. Another guy finally misses. There goes Def as well. All of a sudden, Vietnam are down to just one FC, and Malaysia find themselves with a combo advantage.
Yeah, iFlame, it's Bao versus Rampax on the full combos. You favor the no-mod player there, but look at No-Head in the top right corner. 770 combo, just about 100 back from that FC. 99.5 accuracy here for Malaysia, and that 225k score lead has already gone down by 60k in just that short time since the miss, but Rampax immediately misses after the break. I think the nerves may have got to him there. That accelerating stream claims his FC, and No Head now versus Bao. You still have slightly better supporting combo for Vietnam as well. The score lead starting to go back up. Rampax finding the miss again. Mabayu finding a miss. 2 supporting combos gone for Vietnam, but I think the map is basically over at this point. Bao still on the FC. And we talked about this at the start of the match. Definitely a player of interest for Vietnam, part of this backbone, but it's the other players on this roster who often ended up finding the top plays on their qualifier maps. Bao this time around claiming that honor, 8 100s on the full combo and the only one in the lobby.
Yeah, Bao in the qualifiers, like you mentioned, looked really good for Vietnam on the Nomad 4 tech pick as well. At this one, obviously a lot more flow aim focused, but Bao is so incredibly strong on these flow aim tech focused picks. Of course, Malaysia does have the next pick and feels like they have quite a few options at this point. A Nomad 2 has been picked and that DT2 speed map has been banned. So if you're looking for more tapping, that would have been the Nomad 2, and so Malaysia are now going to have to change things up. They do have some areas they're incredibly strong on. They look solid on the DTs, as well as some of the alt picks last week's Nomad 3. But otherwise, I do feel like you kind of want to capitalize off of the previous successes. Maybe they can opt into something like a hidden one. Feels like it could be all right for Malaysia.
Yeah, I definitely think they're much better off going with something like the DT1, like the Nomad 1, like the Fremod 3 potentially if it gets down to it. And they are indeed just going to go with the DT1. I think that's the most obvious pick left in the pool. It's the only other speed map really left in the pool. Of course, stream maps, as we just saw, very favored towards Vietnam, but speed maps still quite good for Malaysia. Desire Shooting by Arnold, mapped by Elucent. This is... there's some lore behind this map, if you don't mind me expounding a little bit, from the qualifiers, or from the group stage showcase for anyone who missed it. Miles was talking about his agenda to push Toho into the map pool. And for that purpose, bringing Lucent in specifically just to map this one song, and for Lucent under the condition that he only had to map this song and nothing else. So this is 2 Toho junkies conspiring to bring more Toho into the map pool. And it does work very well for this pool as well. About 260-ish BPM. 240-ish BPM, 237 overall, AR 10.3, a little bursty, a little aimy, kind of a combo sort of map here in the DT1.
Yeah, this feels, it's slightly more tapping heavy than your average DT1, but it is still that kind of, for the most part, the generic AR 10.3 consistency DT map. And so we're going to see a lot of players be able to build up some of those bigger combos. Of course, Malaysia, as we've already mentioned, looked incredibly good, getting 7th overall on the DT1 in qualifiers. This DT1 is slightly different. It's 40 BPM slower, which should make things more manageable. And they do have a hot dog in for this DT1 as well, a player who didn't play the qualifiers at all for Malaysia. So that is going to be a really nice addition for them. And as Def fills out the lobby, we should be getting into this one shortly. Looks like it's going to be Def, something else, another guy, Bao for Vietnam, up against Hot Dog, Harumi, Rampax, and No Head for Malaysia. Vietnam still looking to get their breakpoint back, but oftentimes you do expect those to come later in the match. So Vietnam will do their best on this DT1, but they may need to bide their time while they look for this breakpoint.
Well, see if they can keep things close on this DT1. This is definitely a lot more multifaceted than what we saw in the Nomad 2. Far less focused on the pure speed, far more focused on being that sort of hybrid pick. And this is, I think, a lot more accessible for a lot of players, being
much more of an aim pick than it is just a pure speed map. So see if that benefits Vietnam at all. They were a little bit better on those aim picks in the qualifiers than they were on the speed picks. And an early break to come out for No Head does give over a little bit of a score lead for the side of Vietnam. A Hot Dog also struggling on the accuracy. That should come up as we get through the map, but it's looking like potentially offset issues for a Hot Dog. Does finally bring that UR bar toward the center, but potentially some offset issues there, and so that is maybe going to be a recurring issue as the accuracy is staying put around 94%. Something else, though, finding a slide break matching what is actually an early Bancho break for No Head, so still 4 full combos intact for Malaysia. Only 1 drop for Vietnam so far in this first Ki time. Everybody else just fine on the accuracy, just fine on the combo, as things are indeed kept close by both teams. Vietnam slightly ahead off the accuracy advantage, but the combo starting to matter a little bit more here. The score lead going down as we get farther and farther into the map. But there's a combo advantage for Vietnam now. Harumi Enna finding that break right after the first Ki time. 3 FCs to 3, and the teams will see it there.
Yeah, maps like these are the kind of maps that tend to be decided by just a couple misses on either side. This is very playable for a lot of these players, and we definitely could see a couple FCs on this one. Vietnam continue to extend their lead. This 4% accuracy drop from a Hot Dog really hurting Malaysia right now, and something else is on a really solid recovery. But here we go into the next Ki. A Hot Dog mis-aims the start of this Ki section. All of a sudden, Vietnam are absolutely flying as something else continues to recover. They're still holding 3 FCs strong, and Malaysia with their 2 FCs just can't keep up.
And iFlame, it's looking like we are going to get that breakpoint a little earlier than we may have expected. Nothing decisive so far, but 300k and climbing is a very, very good score lead for Vietnam at the moment. Making it through this burstier section without any issue is Vietnam. Still the 3 full combos intact. Still now a 400k score lead. And yeah, there's 2 FCs for Malaysia. It's not a bad team score at all, but Vietnam is going to blow that out of the water here. Already up nearly 500k, way up above 3 mil already. Malaysia just now joining them at that mark, and Vietnam must just see how high they can push this team score. Something else will find another break, going to cap out around 750k there, and Bao also going to find a break right before the end, but that is 4 million points for Vietnam. No issues on this map whatsoever. 4.2 million team score on this DT1. A very, very solid run, and one that I think would keep up with a lot of other teams in the group stage. This, of course, is a very accessible map, as we said earlier. I think this is a map where we're going to see very, very high average scores, but 4.2 million is still quite good from Vietnam. Very good scores there.
Yeah, it's quite the decisive breakpoint as well, winning that one by 400k. I think that's going to inspire a lot of confidence in Vietnam. After winning 2 in a row, they've got some momentum for them going for them now. We'll see if they can keep it up, as they do have the next pick. And if they can win 3 in a row, they're going to be absolutely rolling. Vietnam do still have a lot of picks, it feels like. Hard Rocks are largely untouched. They still have quite a few tech maps available that Nomad 4 they look so good on in qualifiers. The Nomad 5 is interesting because both teams were pretty similar in terms of precision. I'm just not sure if whether Hot Dog changes that for Malaysia, and so I think that one may end up being a bit of a later pick.
See if it ends up being a later pick. I mean, both of these teams only have 2 picks left maximum, right?
Yeah.
So Vietnam, of course, with first pick has a guaranteed 2 picks. Malaysia, if they lose another breakpoint here, potentially only have 1 pick left. So every pick from here really matters for both of these teams. And I think if you are Vietnam, you can maybe start to think about ducking into the DT3, into the Free Mod 1, into the Hard Rock 2, into the Nomad 4. There's a lot of options, I think, here. It's going to be Hard Rock 1 instead, which I'm somewhat surprised at, but not too surprised at. You look at a lot of the skill sets that Vietnam was really solid on. It's the flow aim, it's the tech, it's the hard rock flow, and also precision. It's the kind of flow aim DT from qualifiers. And so a lot of that, what they have in common, is slightly gimmicky flowing or tech sliders, right? This map doesn't really have those, but Vietnam's also just a solid hard rock team, so this pick does still make sense there. I do think this is the more accessible of the two hard rock picks, though. So Malaysia potentially has some inroads into another breakpoint on this map. We'll see if they're able to convert on it, but I do think this is still a solid pick for Vietnam in the hard rock one.
Yeah, personally a fan of this pick. I think they're just informing that off of the qualifiers, where Malaysia had a pretty rough time with some of the hard rocks, hard rock one especially. Now that hard rock one was a lot more flow tech, whereas this one is definitely more of an aim tech map. So Malaysia are going to have their chances, but no hot dog on this one. And I think both teams did look quite good on some of the aim maps. I would say the tech on this map it's definitely there, but it's on the lighter side compared to an actual tech map. And you've got some awkward slider patterns as well to watch out for. And at this point, every point matters so much. You know, obviously nobody wants to give up a break point, but it feels like the maps are getting less in favor of either side now. And so especially as we approach that tiebreaker and we get farther into this match, it feels like these picks should start become a lot closer as we just wait for the players to ready up and we can get into Alien Friend Request.
Yeah, this map, by the way, for anyone unaware, is from a contest, I believe, Kyoku 2024 beat mapping contest, where entrants had to make everything associated with the map. So that includes the song, that includes the background, any storyboarding they did, the map itself, of course, hit sounding, everything had to be done from scratch. And so this is a massive collab between the team behind this map, Dash PC, Chai the Team, Melon Boy, and Wafer, all working on the song, the vocals, the lyrics, the background art, and the map.
Yeah, it's incredibly cool. I do know some players were struggling with the timing on this map, so we'll have to keep an eye on the accuracies. Hope all of them have their offsets sorted, as Rampax is going to find the first miss. And we do see a couple players falling a little bit behind on accuracy. Bao, another guy, and Rampax down around 96. It's going to be a slight lead for Malaysia, but this is where the map really starts to pick up in difficulty, and we could start to see some misses. The first big miss comes through for another guy, immediately followed up by Chiyu and Def, so it is going to be 2 FCs to 2, but Rampax now on a pretty solid recovery. This is a pretty lengthy map as well, so both teams have plenty of time to recover these combos and really bring this score lead back. This is a free advantage for Vietnam. The score should flip back over any second. That's a big miss from Harumi Anna, missing on the easier section. And that miss from another guy is just not going to be as important, as it's 2 FCs to 0 as Nabayu drops the final FC for Malaysia. Vietnam should really be able to push this score lead now going into this easier section.
Yeah, and one thing, we haven't really talked about it a lot, but this is a pretty hard map in this map pool. And so I think pretty obviously a hard map in this map pool. It's very multi-skill set. There's a lot going on at pretty much any point. You've got some flow aim, you've got a little bit of slider jumps, you've got some just high spacing aim and awkward aim in this map as well. A bit of overlap reading on some of these. So there's just a ton going on. Finally, a break comes through for Casio. That's one of the FCs now gone for Vietnam, but Bao still holding strong. Def and another guy also on good recovery combos. Make that just Def, but Mabayu to drop in turn for Malaysia, and Chiyu to drop as well. And now there's just no combo left on Malaysia. Rampax the biggest with just 320 combo. And it's Bao and Def ahead of everyone else in the lobby after that short break into an easier section here, as hopefully the tournament client wants to cooperate. Hopefully nobody's disconnecting or anything. Cool. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but we'll hopefully be fine. Surely it's fine.
Yeah, Bao has been, absolutely on fire these last couple of maps, and as I say that, looks like Bao has found a miss. Okay, it is Boncho. Bao still holding strong, so as we take stock of the situation, Vietnam up by 300,000 points. They've got all the combo. Malaysia are far out of this one, and Vietnam is going to be taking their 3rd point in a row. And I'm not sure if Bao missed at the start, but looking to put up another incredibly strong score back-to-back. And Malaysia, they're going to be looking towards the next pick already.
Yeah, very good pick here for Vietnam. Turns out just picking a difficult hard rock map works out very, very well for them in this matchup. And they're going to take this pretty convincingly, 500k score lead already. I don't know if we're going to be able to watch the end of this one, guys, but at the very least, it looks like we'll finish out the map. There we go. A couple of more misses to come through for actually everyone, as the ending claims all 8 combos. Maybe a little bit of a difficult section there. Not going to impact too much, though. 630,000 score lead for Vietnam on that hard rock one. It was 2 in a row for Malaysia to start off the match, followed now by 3 wins in a row for Vietnam in the back half of this match. We'll see now if Malaysia can stop that momentum, pick successfully, and tie things up 3-3 again. iFlame, if Malaysia lose this next pick, then Vietnam is at 4-2. That's match point. Vietnam has the next pick after that. If Malaysia lose this pick, they potentially just don't get another pick and they lose 5-2. So this is a really important pick. They should be picking their best map here in order to get as many points as possible, because as we discussed earlier in the group stages, if you do happen to tie with another team for match wins, let's say you have 2 teams that are 2-1, or let's say you have one team that goes 3-0 and 3 teams that are 1-2. Those 3 teams that are 1-2, those ties are broken by your point differential, so the number of maps you have won minus the number of maps you have lost. So Malaysia, you want as many points on the board in every single match possible, and I don't know about this DT3. This is a map that in qualifiers was extremely good for Vietnam. Now, that map was a lot more old-style, kind of Kirby McFlowame-esque. Definitely a more modern take on that sort of thing, but very, very Flowame heavy DT alt. This is a lot more snap aim focused DT alt. So that sort of difference may be very good for Malaysia in this case. I was expecting more of kind of a straightforward aim pick, but Malaysia, they're out of speed maps, right? There's the DT1 is gone, the Nomad 2 is gone. They had also won the Hidden 2, so you could potentially go with the Hidden 1 here, but I wasn't really expecting this map. Maybe just with the much heavier focus on snapping, this is a solid pick for Malaysia. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I definitely see the thought process behind this pick. You mentioned the other aim maps in the pool, like the Nomad 1 for Malaysia, but you've just lost 2 aim-focused maps, right, in the Hard Rock 1 as well as the DT 1, and so all of a sudden those get a little bit more scary, and maybe you're hesitant to keep picking into those aim maps, feel the need to change it up. The other thing that could be a big factor for Malaysia is that they have a hot dog who has looked really good on some of these DT picks. I think is going to be a strong performer for them on the DT3, and again was not available for them in the qualifiers. So even though Malaysia seeded 44th on the qualifiers DT3, with the more snap aim focus of this map, as well as the return of a hot dog for Malaysia, hopefully that is enough to get Malaysia a point on the board, because as we've discussed, giving up a break point now would very likely spell the end of Malaysia in this match. Now, this DT3 is an incredibly short map, and I mean, it's kind of a stand-in for your typical No-Mod 3, since we don't really have a dedicated No-Mod alt map in this pool. But there are a couple really, really tricky aim control patterns in this map. One especially difficult one, about 3/4 of the way into the map, that I expect to be claiming a lot of combos. So if we see any big combos left over at that point, we're gonna have to see if anyone can hold on, as Malaysia is DT3 their saving grace. They need to stop this momentum from Vietnam, stem the bleeding, and they did actually take Hot Dog out. So forget my earlier point about Hot Dog making the differences. They're going to be running Rampax, Nohead, Mabiyu, and Harumi Enna up against Def, Simi, another guy, and Bao. The Vietnam core looking strong once again. Some accuracy struggles early on for Bao, but you generally expect that accuracy to recover as we go later into the map. Def going to be finding the first couple of misses along with Nohead, followed up by Simi. So just going to be 2 FCs to 3 in favor of Malaysia. And these early misses really do matter a lot, but there are still some tricky patterns coming up. And if Bao continues to be on form, if only one player from these FCs hits that pattern at about 3/4, they could absolutely be the decider. Here we go into the next tricky section.
More of these back and forth snappy patterns, followed by some pretty high spacing flow aim immediately afterwards. Nobody missing so far, though. Everybody hitting this section at the moment. More of these difficult patterns coming through, more of the wiggle streams, more of these back and forth wiggles also coming through, but nobody dropping any combo at all in that entire section. Now we get into a bit more of a tricky section as well. Harumi and a Shimi also finding the break. Mbayu also dropping now. It's one full combo for Rampax versus the two for another guy and Bao. Def matching no head. Bao falls. It's now basically completely even in terms of the combos. Another guy in Def versus Rampax and no head. FCs for another guy and Rampax. Good recovery for Def and No Head. Shami also finding another miss there. It's 200,000 score for Malaysia, and I think as the end of the map comes up here, that's not going to change at all. Malaysia taking it on this DT3. Rampax and No Head pulling up some really, really good scores, but as well, you look at the bottom row, it's a minimum 700K for everyone on Malaysia. And Vietnam, I mean, they got close to that, but unfortunately just not quite as good as Malaysia on this pick. And so it is indeed tied up 3-3. Last pick guaranteed for both of these teams, starting with Vietnam's last pick up next.
Yeah, we've got a best of 3 on our hands now between these two teams. Each team will get one final pick. And for Vietnam, outside of that first mishap, they've looked really good on their own picks. They've won them consistently then, and by decent margins as well. And when we take a look at what's left in the pool, we do have that Hard Rock 2. Vietnam has looked really good on the Hard Rocks. I think you tend to stray away from some of those more aim-focused maps despite winning the Hard Rock 1 and the DT1. Could they potentially look at something like a Free Mod 1, which is more of that aim control tech style, not so different. Well, it is quite different, but probably most similar to the No Mod 4 that we saw earlier.
Yeah, I don't know. For Vietnam, I'm looking at the No Mod 4. I'm looking at the Free Mod 1 and the Hard Rock 2, and it is just going to be the Hard Rock 2. I was kind of hoping we would get this from this team as well. Show Off Showdown by Memo Demo, the one OWC original in this map pool. Custom song, original song by Memo Demo for the OS World Cup 2025 group stage, mapped by Chaos Lits. I'm going to check on the background artist as well. Hopefully that's in the description here. Background by Antlion, and of course graphics design by Alex Dunk and Panthulu. Pineapple and Zeth contributing to design quality assurance. Video design by Sakura as well. Just goes to show you there's more than just the original artist and the mapper collaborating on these originals. There's a whole team behind basically every single one of them, which is always great to see. This map in particular, though, 140 BPM, CS 6.5 after Hard Rock, and very much focused on alt aim control with that higher circle size after Hard Rock. And we saw Vietnam do very, very well on that Hard Rock 1. This is a very different type of map, being alt aim control precision alongside a little bit of finger control. But it is still a somewhat difficult Hard Rock pick, a somewhat inaccessible Hard Rock pick as well, being both CS 6.5 precision and that lower BPM alt aim control.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one, and especially because the precision alt is not necessarily a skill set that a lot of players spend a ton of time practicing. Gonna want to keep an eye on Def on the side of Vietnam. Had the 8th best score of anybody in the tournament on the precision map from qualifiers. And while we wait for the players to get into the lobby, very quick reminder that if you want to show some support for your favorite OWC teams, you can get your country banner in the OSU shop and show some support. If you have the banner of the winning team, you get to keep that banner for the remainder of the year. So go show some love for your favorite team. I'm sure they greatly appreciate it. And good luck, have funs in the chat as we've got Def, another guy, Casio, the precision fill player for Vietnam, along with Bao up against Rampax, Chiyu, No Head, and Mabiyu. And Malaysia did have some really good precision scores as well, right? No Head especially is a very strong precision player. They're going to be one to watch out for. And the first quarter of this map should be pretty easy for most of these players. So that's going to be more of a nerves test, as easy as the map may be for the first quarter. With CS 6.5 and the nerves of being on the OSU World Cup stage, it's not difficult to find some early misses that you wouldn't normally get in practice. I'll have to keep an eye on those as Vietnam starts their last pick.
Well, it's an early miss, unfortunately, for another guy on the side of Vietnam. Bao, Casio, and Def also filling out their roster. Rampax, Chiyu, Nohead, and Mabayu for Malaysia. Mabayu to find the first drop on their side, and now Rampax also finding the slider break there on that long slider. It's 8K in favor of Malaysia, but soon to go back the way of Vietnam with that FC advantage and the supporting combo for another guy being higher than either Rampax's or Mabayu's. No Head and Chiyu still holding strong, though. Still a chance for Malaysia to come back in this very short Hard Rock 2. Only 2 minutes and 30 seconds here. Bao finds the drop for Vietnam. Casio and Def holding and matching Chiyu and No Head. But another miss to come through for Bao. Another guy also dropping the supporting combo. And now the support very much in favor of Malaysia. But Chiyu drops the FC soon afterwards. It's No Head versus Casio and Def. But the support for Rampax and Mabayu is basically matching an FC here, iFlame, and that score is pretty much staying put at 20K. Now going back the way of Malaysia with another miss to come through for Def, and this is just balancing on a knife's edge at the moment. No Head needing to hold this FC, Rampax and Mabayu needing to hold this support to bring this back the way of Malaysia, but if any other misses come through for Vietnam, this is going to skyrocket over the side of Malaysia. Can Vietnam's FCs hold here? Another miss to come through for, actually no, just an act drop for Bao there. As we get closer and closer to the end of the map here, a bit of a break, 50K in favor of Malaysia.
Nobody falls to that start pattern, but the end of this map is the hardest section yet. And like you said, the balance of this map, hanging on knife's edge, 60,000 points for Malaysia, but one miss from any of these major combos, and that'll flip back over in a heartbeat. And everybody on both teams nailing these patterns right now. The next miss on either side could very well be the end, but that's kind of the map. There are a couple more tough patterns. Rampax with a big miss right towards the end. Does Vietnam have the time? They immediately find a double miss. It is traded back by Mabiyu, but I think the damage has been done. It's only another guy holding the FC. Actually, not the FC. Further down, it's No Head only holding the combo, and that's going to be Malaysia with the breakpoint on Vietnam's last pick, and now they've got a chance to close it out on a pick of their own, and that's going to be a very strong score from No Head, and that is why No Head is Malaysia's go-to precision player.
Yeah, I mean, very, very solid run there for No Head. Honestly, just a great run for Malaysia, holding those really high supporting combos until basically the end of the map. Casio and Def had really, really good runs as well, both over 1K combo, both over 730K, but just not quite able to match that FC from No Head, and the supporting scores for Malaysia enough to just barely take them over the edge at the end of the map. And Vietnam now down match point against Malaysia. It was Vietnam with 3 in a row during the middle of the match, but Malaysia have bookended them with 2 on each side. Now up 4-3 with the last pick for themselves. And that nightmare scenario for Malaysia that we were talking about earlier of being down match point with Vietnam having the next pick, shoes on the other foot this time around. Malaysia now in control of their own destiny, can close this out cleanly and avoid that tiebreaker if they just pick correctly here for the last map of the match. That said, it's a pretty tough last pick. You've got Nomad 1, which a lot of teams I feel like avoid just because it is the most accessible sort of skill set, just basic aim. Tech in the Nomad 4, they probably don't want that given how much better Vietnam was than them in qualifiers on that sort of skill set. Nomad 5 could be a pick, but it's going to be Hidden 1 instead. Malaysia going for not hidden aim in the hidden one, but hidden alt tech in this map. I am, color me a little surprised on this one. They did win the hidden 2, but against a team like Vietnam that does have some pretty good tech players on it, I think picking hidden alt tech is certainly bold, but there's not a lot of the map pool left, so I do get the pick here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of map that Simi, Def, and something else should all be able to play. Curious whether we do see Casio on this one. I think it's most likely we just see Bao filling in this time around. And yeah, I'm slightly surprised by the pick as well. But I think, like you said, that no mod 1, especially in these early rounds, feels super coin flippy for even some of the lower seeded teams, and it really feels like more of a nerves test. And I have a feeling both of these teams right now are going to be feeling the nerves. Malaysia, they know they have a chance to close this one out right now, and Vietnam desperately want to take a tiebreaker. And I think both of these teams are aware that if they lose this one, it's going to be a very tough matchup into Taiwan based on the seeding. You do expect Taiwan to be the favorites against either of these teams. And so if you lose this one, you're far from guaranteed to make it out of this group alive. And I think, I'm sure the weight, the pressure of that realization weighing on both of these teams pretty heavily, as we do have another guy out, and we do see Casio in for Vietnam along with something else. Mabayu rampacks a hot dog, and just waiting on that final player for Malaysia now. Wouldn't be surprised to see Harumi back in, and will absolutely fill this one out. Now, this HD1, as you mentioned, bit of a swing tech map, lots of alt at 133 BPM, and we'll see how many misses we get on the first pattern. That is unusually brutal for a start of the map, so but that players should be able to recover their combos immediately after. This is the kind of map that really picks up in difficulty as the map goes on. So it's going to be important to find a lead early, because if you find yourself down by 100,000 points going into the last quarter of the map, it's going to be really, really tough to make up that score difference. As good luck, have funds in the chat. Malaysia now have a chance for their last pick, and Vietnam now looking to do what Malaysia did to them.
And it looks like there's potentially, there we go, another member coming in for Bao. It looked like Bao needed to be kicked there, and so now we should be ready to go for another guy, Casio, something else, and Def instead of Bao on the last pick of this match. Last pick for Malaysia. Vietnam hoping it's not the last map of the match, looking to force tiebreaker in the first match of the OS World Cup 2025. Malaysia looking to deny that tiebreaker and clinch the win in the last pick for themselves here, 5-3. Let's get into it. This hidden one, Overjoy Overdose by Luna Phaser. Originally from BMS, by the way. This is not even a like real VTuber song, quote unquote. This is from BMS, which is very, very unexpected.
Yeah, we do see some slightly concerning accuracies early on from another guy and something else, because they were the only two to miss that first pattern. But it's a lot more misses coming out from Vietnam already. Def is the last one holding an FC, and they're not too far behind in terms of combo, but this is an incredibly short map at 2 minutes and 26 seconds, so these misses are going to start adding up. We do get into the first tricky section of the map now, but Malaysia looking good on their final pick, still holding 4 FCs, and the map doesn't pick up in difficulty for quite a while. I think Vietnam, if they don't make that recovery now, they're going to have a tough time making a comeback into the end of this map, especially towards the 2/3 mark. It gets a lot snappy. There's another miss from Casio, and Vietnam just not having a good time rebuilding these combos. And we may not make a tiebreaker after all, as it's once again only Def holding 4-way FC still for Malaysia, and this might very well be it.
Yeah, I don't know how Vietnam is going to come back in this. They basically just need a 4-way break here halfway into the map. That's the only miracle they can hope for right now, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. 4-way FC is still intact, let alone 4-way break for Malaysia. Harumiena will find a drop for Malaysia, but iFlame, I think it's over. 570k in the bank for Malaysia, and climbing. there's just no possibility of a comeback, and there goes Defs FC. A hot dog will follow, another guy, and something else will follow as well. But this is demolition from Malaysia on this hidden one. And we weren't quite sure how this pick would work out, but it seems very well is the answer here. Even with 3 of their players finding breaks for Malaysia, all 4 have found them for Vietnam in this same section. And the score lead continues to grow as Mabayu continues to hold this FC for Malaysia. 860k and climbing for Malaysia. And that is finally a break from Mabayu. No FCs in the end, but Malaysia will completely tear down Vietnam in this last map and indeed bookend those 3 points for Vietnam. 2 in the front and 3 in the back for Malaysia is 5 points to take the match and the first win of the OS World Cup 2025.
Yeah, that is going to put them first in their group, of course, for the time being. Both of these teams will have 2 more matches to be played with 1 loss. Even if Malaysia does go 1-2 in the group stage, they do still have a chance to make it out if one team goes 3-0. But, you know, they could beat the other 2 teams in the group as well, right? Their destiny is still in their hands, so they're going to have to go back, and I'm sure they're going to be well prepared for their next couple of matches. Congratulations to Vietnam taking our first win. Both teams had some really strong...
To Malaysia taking our first win.
Yes, to Malaysia. Our next match is going to be 8 UTC Saturday. That's going to be China versus Thailand. Should be a pretty good one. And then we've got a couple more matches on Saturday, 11 UTC, followed by 14 and 16 UTC.
Yeah, lots and lots of matches this weekend and next. I mean, there's how many matches in each group? You have 24 matches per group, 48 matches over the course of the next 2 weeks, 47 to go with this one out of the way. As you said, our next match there, actually New Zealand versus Finland at 11 UTC on Saturday. So you can tune in for that one. And a very last thing, iFlame, what's your favorite way to prepare banners before you eat them? What's the tastiest way you can get them? Personally, I'm going barbecue rub on the smoker for a few hours, but I've seen people do some other stuff, oven roasted, pan seared. There's a few ways to prepare them, but it all starts in the OS store. So go out there, get your banners, and support your favorite teams in the OS World Cup. Eat banners. Thank you for watching the OS World Cup 2025. I'm Dio, he's iFlame, and we'll see you back here 11 UTC for New Zealand versus Finland.